Thank you for tuning into another episode of the Let's Go to the Movies podcast. As you can clearly see, it's the first time that we'll be doing a video recorded version of the podcast. We're very happy that we figured out a way to do it. Just first episode, just keep in mind it's our first time trying to figure this out. We had very bad connectivity issues, so there's a lot of lag with our guest and sometimes with us as well, and it was all done over Discord. You can't necessarily trust it, but we tried our best. For those listening to the audio version of the podcast, this doesn't matter to you. It's irrelevant really, but for those watching on YouTube, apologies, don't be too harsh on us. You know, we're trying to learn, you know. It's the first time that we're trying to do this version of an episode, and so we're very happy that it turned out relatively well. It's also the longest episode that we've done, and so just bear with us. It's an interesting conversation if you've seen what we the movie that we'll be talking about, and I'll introduce that shortly. But before we go into the actual episode, I just wanted to say that I wanted to give a content warning. It's a very dark, depressing comedy special that we looked at. I say comedy in quotes because it's very just inside the mind of the person that created it. For those of you that are very well aware of internet popularity, you guys probably know what I'm already talking about in terms of what the special is. But yeah, so just a content warning for all of that. We tried our best to tread lightly on as much as we could for this special, but we tried our best as well to talk about as much as we could, because this deserved praise. It is an amazing piece of art, and we're very grateful that we had one of our previous guests want to talk about it with us. So yeah, hope you guys enjoy another episode of Hello everyone, I'm Andre.
And I'm Jesus.
And welcome back to Let's Go to the Movies podcast. This is the podcast where every week we bring in a new guest and we talk about a movie of their choice. This week we have our second returning guest, Kendra, and we'll be talking about one of the most trending things of media. I can't call it a movie, can't call it special. It's the most trending thing online at the moment, and it is Bo Burnham's Inside. So we're not going to do the typical thing this week where we rate the film and then give our first thoughts on it. We'll just jump right into it. But before that, Kendra, what made you want to reach out to us again about Inside specifically?
I mean, I think like everybody, we all know that Inside came out, and we were just talking about how it's like all over my TikTok feed. Like I'm just seeing it nonstop. And I watched it like a week ago maybe, and I've just watched it like over and over and over again. And I think like every time I watch it, I like find something new, and I've been I've really connected with it, and it's really like resonated with me in certain areas. And I was just like, you know, this might be my favorite of the year. And I know it's not like technically a film, but it might be my favorite film of the year. So I thought it applied. I wanted to jump in before anyone took that place.
For sure, yeah. So before we go into it, the way that we'll be running this episode is not like a regular one. We'll be going on into each segment of Inside in chronological order and talk about each one, because there's a reason why Bo had each segment in, so why not talk about each one? They each deserve their own respective time. But yeah, so that's what we'll be doing for this episode. And before anything, just a content warning for anybody that's listening to it. If you have seen Bo Burnham's Inside, which you probably have, because then you wouldn't really want to listen to this before you've watched it. Content warning, because obviously it's very dark topics that is discussed, There's mentions of suicide at some point in the special, and so we might end up touching on that very briefly, but just content warning for that. Just in general, anything you could think of, it's in the special almost, so we'll just get right into it then. So yeah, the opening segment for Inside, not talking about technically the intro song, but just the first shots of the special itself are so interesting because it's basically the make happy ending. If I'm thinking correctly, it like reminds me a lot of like the end of that special. And it just has that tonal shift because he comes back into that room that he leaves in Make Happy, and then it's just like that synth vibe and like that synth song, and it's the one where it's the famous line that's on TikTok is the "Daddy made your favorite open wide." That's the opening song, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To my knowledge, I think it was. Yeah.
And like, so Kendra, as somebody who's worked on projects, who's worked on sets and like behind the camera and stuff, what do you think of the way that he did lights for that opening segment? Because
I mean, like the lights the whole way through were insane. I was just, I mean, because I've done a lot of stuff like in my apartment and like making sets in my apartment, and I mean, at first when I first watched it, I didn't think much of the lights other than it was like gorgeous, but I started to realize that they must have had like some type of meaning. But for the first segment, I just thought it was gorgeous. I don't know if I really thought into like what the lighting might mean in that scene, but him with the light on his head and looking up at the disco ball. I mean, first thoughts, I was just like, wow, okay, he is really getting creative and like blowing my mind. I mean, like I knew that he was already a great cinematographer, or not cinematographer, but just like filmmaker in general from what was it, third grade?
Eighth grade. Yeah.
Eighth grade.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I just remember feeling like super shocked just by that first thing because I thought it was going to just be a special, and then I was like, oh wait, no, this is like cinematic. This is like a project that he worked on.
Yeah.
It's just insane, and it's like feels so passive, like the way that he did the lights in it, because it's like a lot of the special he's like really actively doing things, like in the songs like he's hitting the buttons and you get to see it when he's controlling the lights, but this one he's just kind of like sitting there, then he raises his head and then he sits back down again, or then he lowers his head again, and that it's very interesting because I like always thought the special like started off in like a happy way. Like when I first watched it, I've watched it twice now, and then it like slowly goes like darker and darker as he's dealing with creating the special. But looking at the way that he's just like so not engaged with like his equipment as much for the that first segment really kind of struck a nerve with me yesterday when I was watching it a second time and taking notes, because I was like, it doesn't feel as intense or like as he's really, I mean, he obviously put in so much effort, he evidently did, but like he doesn't show that as he does later.
It's kind of a cold opening whenever it does that. It pulls in with him. He's just like sitting there basically, not really doing anything.
Yeah, it's
one interesting thing I saw too is that he comes into the room and he has short hair, and so like that was like I imagine it's almost like him coming in for the first time, you know, or not for the first time, but like first day that he's in lockdown or whatever, and then like it cuts to that song and he has long hair, and I'm sure there was like a period of time in between where he's like planning and writing things down and his hair grows out. But the last time I watched it, I really noticed that, and I was like, okay, so there's like a quick cut in between like you coming into this room, starting lockdown, and then you like deep into lockdown,
like with that synth that just changes everything around.
Yeah.
What I want to know is how long it took him to make the entire special and stuff like that, and because as we see, like it cuts between his short hair and his long hair, right? So obviously there has to be like a pretty long time frame between that, because I doubt that's a fake beer. Like that's
No,
pretty
no,
obviously
no.
his actual beer.
Yeah.
So
I mean,
like
it does say that he made it over the last year. Like that's like the whole thing is that it took him the whole time. But
so
we
he
don't get
needed
it.
to
We don't
wait.
know when he started though. That's the whole thing.
That's true. That's true.
Like
So like he filmed the first part and then he waited months for all of his hair to grow out and then he filmed the second part while he's doing that. Like I'm just trying to wrap my head around like the timeline of how he would have done that itself, because like that's still a big wide open area of him, of like extra space to do something with that.
I mean, this kind of ties into like the second brief segment as we kind of shift into that. It's like just BRoll shots of him setting up equipment, and it's like we see like the changes in like how he looks, and I feel like he had all the segments, like the songs, the actual sketches or bits. They're not even really sketches. They're just they kind of are, like the one about like the social media manager that we'll get onto later, but like I feel like he had all of those parts written out, and like once he like was in the space where he felt like he could make it, he made it. Because I don't feel like this is a thing that he wrote it as he was making it. I feel like because
it was planned.
He's such a amazing filmmaker and everything. I feel like he did have everything planned down to like the tiniest detail, and all that we see that's more so like haphazard or was on the run, like run and gun, was all the BRoll stuff that we saw. That then he kind of just like tied everything together that fit more with his mental state. I'm not Bo. I don't know.
Yeah. I think you might be right though, because it seems to me like there's like that period of time in between, like when he went into lockdown, which I can only assume is like March, right? Because we all like went inside then.
Yeah, somewhere around that.
And then he's testing the lights, writing songs, and like you're right. I'm remembering now that like some of that BRoll, his hair was like shorter, so it's like shots from when he's like putting everything together and like testing lights. And there's that, I know that this comes a little bit later, but there's that like montage where he is like trying out different lights, and like I don't know, this one light where he like moves behind him, and his hair was shorter
like,
in that, if I remember correctly.
And that was like very
going like
close
this.
to
the end.
Yeah. So it's for the timeline stuff. It's very. I feel like he knew what he was doing in terms of like where things were going to go in the special, but he didn't. As almost every set goes, you don't film it chronologically. You just film what you can when you can, or it's all pre-planned to like the smallest detail.
Yeah, that's what I was talking about in the beginning, because like he really has to plan that out so he could get the like with the time, so he could get like the process, the proper the sense of like time passing and like a big with that space in between with his because you can tell, because that's one of the things that I found really interesting that he does, is that you really can't, like, there's no way to tell that time passes specifically, except for the fact that his hair and everything else is like he grows out more, he becomes a little bit more sloppy, right? Like that's the only thing that really tells you that it's been a long time. Like this is time passing. This isn't just like one day.
Right. Yeah.
So I wonder if it was a like decision that he made, that he was like, I'll grow out my hair and that'll show. But it's like, I don't know, none of us knew what the pandemic was going to look like in the beginning of this, and I know that this isn't really what the special isn't really about, the pandemic. But I mean, I assume that he started it in the beginning, and none of us knew how long that would take. So I wonder if he just like kind of let himself go, and then he was like, I'll just like let my hair grow out, or if he was like, no, I'm actually just gonna grow my hair out, and then there's gonna be like two versions of me. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't think we'll ever know. I don't want him to explain it, because then it's like that's the joy of, well, not necessarily joy, but it's the interesting part of watching and rewatching the special, is that you get to interpret anything you want in any way you want.
And in some things, it's happened in like songs before, something like that. Whenever the artists they ask like, "Hey, can you explain what you meant by saying this in your lyrics, or like this part of the song?" And they're like, "I don't know. I just gonna put that in because I wanted to." Like that's so. It's almost like, what's it called? Like it's not satisfying. Like you're just like, "Oh, okay." cool.
Exactly.
Never mind then. Yeah, because it just invalidates every single theory you could ever have. Them just saying that, like, oh yeah, I just did that. So like, if you were to explain it, I'm really hoping that's not going to be part of it, because it would be kind of sad.
For sure.
Yeah, and I feel like I've heard like so many different people's ideas of what they think that certain lyrics mean, or like certain lighting means. And like I think that like that's kind of the purpose of art, is like to have everybody kind of like see their own thing in it. And especially with something like this, it seems like it was really, a lot of this was really personal to him, and the kind of like depression that he went into. And I mean, I can only assume, so I'm sure that he has his own meanings to things, but I've heard some things that I'm like, that might not be what he means, but it's like totally valid. And like that's the purpose of watching any piece of media, is like to see yourself in it in some type of way, and like learn something about you or what you think through it. So I think that this is going to be one of those pieces of media that like people will be analyzing forever. And like I'm just so excited to hear like all the different ideas people have about it, because I'll hear something and be like, I didn't even think that at all, like I didn't see that in the slightest, but maybe that's what he meant, maybe it's not.
That's exactly right. So moving on to the next song then, it's the first version of Joking at a Time Like This, which was the one that is the first time that he uses like that recorded laughter, and he like he purposefully like takes the time to turn around.
That was kind of creepy.
Yeah, to stop playing, turn around, press it when it's like like somewhat dark lyric. I can't really remember the lyrics, but when I saw that, it reminded me a lot of this one YouTube video that, once again, TikTok is just jamming Bo Burnham content down my throat. That's the point of this episode, to just kind of get all the thoughts out of the way so we can maybe move past it on the algorithm. But the one thing that I keep seeing is, and I've already actually seen that interview many times, is when Bo Burnham was on this thing called The Green Room, and it was with a bunch of veteran comedians that were like, one of them was Ray Romano, and then a handful of other guys, and he did this song called Art is Dead, and it's all about being a self-centered artist. Like that's the whole like, I am an artist, like that's like, I don't know if you know that song, Kendra, that
seen that.
Okay, it's really recommend it, but it's like super not a comedic song. It's meant to, at least an interpretation of it isn't to not be comedic at all. It's like talking about self-obsession that artists have, and how like they need to be the center of attention all the time, and it's too much to kind of talk about. That could be its own actual episode, just that song. But they have in the background, you can hear, it was in front of a crowd with these other comedians watching him, and you can hear the crowd laughing at certain lyrics which are not necessarily meant to be laughed at. And so as soon as he turns around and hits that laugh button, like inside, I was immediately reminded of that, and I was like, oh, he's talking about like, that's referencing the audience not being aware, or like lacking the self-awareness that the artist would have in that moment, or like not willing to look at the piece of art in depth to a certain degree.
Yeah, because
it's a lot to just kind of throw at you guys.
Yeah,
like I have like 8 pages of notes in here for the special. So
because that really reminds me of what you mentioned. I mentioned this a little bit before the podcast. It's considered a comedy movie, like just a little thing like on Netflix. It's under the comedy category, right? Like under dark comedy. I'm watching this man slowly go insane in his apartment alone. Like, there are a few parts that I did find funny, like whenever he's on the calculator in the beginning and he's like spamming 420 plus 69, 420 plus 69. Yeah, like that. There are some parts that are kind of funny, but like you said, like if if you go into the thing thinking it's supposed to be a comedy, then like some parts that aren't exactly funny are gonna appear funny. But when you go into it thinking that like this is the film showing this man slowly go insane in his apartment, like you're kind of like, oh, it's a little sad, you know?
Yeah, and that's what's like.
It must seem off to me like a Oh,
Oh
sorry.
no, go ahead, please.
Sorry, it almost came off to me like a coping mechanism a little
Yeah.
bit. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, I heard this in a video essay, and I kind of like watched it again with that like in mind. That like, especially with the laughter, you were saying how like the laughter will come up in moments that are like, maybe we shouldn't laugh at that. Maybe that's like actually a serious thing that he said. And it's like uncomfortable. So if he didn't have the laughter there, which is usually there with an audience, then it's like uncomfortable. Like if he calls out white men, if he calls out Jeffrey Bezos or whoever, it's kind of serious. It's like real. So like with the laughter
Mhm.
or with, any part of the comedy, he like is able to like, I mean, I don't know if this is what he's going through, but it felt to me like it was like this is a way to kind of not deal with how like I don't know how dark some of these things are.
Hmm.
Mhm.
I don't know what segment this was in. I think it's coming up, so I think I'm kind of on the timeline still. But there's that one part where he's like, oh, maybe it's a little later, but anyway, there's that one part where he's like, it's like the first time he's really showing that he's in a really dark place, and he's like sitting in that chair in the middle of the room, and he's like shaking his leg, and he's like, I'm feeling terrible or whatever. But in the beginning, he's like, it's fine when I'm asleep or whatever. And then he goes into that feeling in my body, and it's like funny all of a sudden that he's
Yeah.
like in this dark
Yeah.
depression. Yeah, and that
That's
came off
closer
to
to
me
the
like,
end of the
oh, that's
special. Yeah.
completely a coping mechanism. Yeah, maybe I went a little too far.
That's
but...
okay. That's okay. Oh wait, hold on. I have it right. Yeah, it's closer to the. It's right after the "Feel Like Shit" song, and so it's like closer to the end of the special. And he says, "My mental health is at an all-time low," and then it's like that high angle, slow zoom to an extreme close-up. Is that the one that you're talking about? And he's just like staring directly in the camera the whole time. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's just like an example of it, but the laughter is like the exact same thing in my opinion, where he like escapes the negative feeling and goes into comedy, you know? I don't
Yeah.
know if that makes any sense.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah.
Sure. So now we're gonna move on to the next song. It's very abrupt transitions going into.
Hold on,
each
let me get my
segment.
charger. One
It's
second.
on theme.
Yeah. Oh man. It's...
Yeah, we can do abrupt transitions if Bo
Yeah.
can do abrupt transitions too.
Exactly. And yeah, like the song that is the is comedy over when he's like, when it's the same segment that Jesus said with like the 420 plus 69, like that whole bit. It's like turns into like the white savior song too, because he's just like, oh, I should shut up. I'm just a white guy.
Back.
I'm bored. Like that whole bit that he does. It's like, I mean, I also should talk on it because I'm a white guy too. So it's like, a lot of these songs, actually, one of the songs that comes up, I'll mention it. I have notes that are like telling me not to talk about certain things because I shouldn't be as a white guy. But anyways, the next song is the FaceTiming Mom song, which is like, I can see that that's like the song that's like meant to kind of treat the opening of the special as more of a comedy than anything else, because like there's like a few things that I can see from it that feels more intense or that you can look at more in depth, because it's like the aspect ratio completely changes for the first time. He does it multiple times, but he goes into like the vertical ratio and it just feels a lot lonelier because it's like just him with the black borders right next to him, and he's like FaceTiming his mom because he can't actually talk to his mom, but then it also feels like he's projecting his anger at his mom throughout the song. I don't know.
It's one of the only times that he's actually like speaking with somebody else and like connecting in a way to somebody else. The only other time is during the sexting song, but like that's the only time he's making like a connection to somebody else. And I mean, I don't know, I had trouble with this one because I was like, what do you mean with this? Like, if I'm analyzing this whole thing, like, what does this mean?
Yeah.
And that was the only thing I could see, is that, I mean, it's really close up to his face, like a FaceTime call was. I don't know if that was just like intentional to what a FaceTime call looks like, or if it was supposed to be like really close and like intimate. Like, I don't know. I guess intimate, like a FaceTime call is, or if it was just like supposed to be funny. But I just thought it was interesting that it's like the only time he's really talking to somebody. The sexting song is not really they're sending emojis and like barely
Yeah.
even having a connection at all, you know, but he's like actively like yelling at his mom and getting mad at his mom, and I just thought that that was like interesting.
For sure. And what comes right after that is another. I'm trying to. I don't remember the context of the specific scene, but I feel like it's BRoll again. But there's something in it that I've only seen talked about online like a handful of times. It's the weird blip of his overlay of when he's like his streaming sketch that he does. There's like a weird blip where you accidentally see like a few frames of this live stream character that Bo is doing on a B-roll take in like the same bottom corner. I don't know if you guys caught that when you watched it, but
Yeah, it reminded me of Fight Club. Like, you know how in Fight Club, what's his name? Tyler Durden would like pop up every once in a while.
no,
It
'cause
reminded
I haven't
me of
seen
that.
it, but I get it.
You haven't seen it? Oh
It's
no.
fine.
Okay, well, okay.
Neither of us have seen it, but we know everything about the movie already, so it's okay.
Well, it's not a spoiler. It doesn't really like tell you much about what happens in the story. But I mean, I was thinking about that because I saw that video essay, and I should probably give credit to the person that did the video essay because I got like a lot of info from it, but it was Tough Specialist. If you want to look at his video.
Okay.
But he was talking about how there's like two Bo Burnhams in this show. There's like one Bo that's like the performer, and one is like the real him, or at least, I mean, that could be a performance too, and I'm sure that it kind of is. If you're recording yourself, you're always like performing a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But like in that part, it was like he said it could be like a reference to Fight Club, because in Fight Club they have these little like pop-ups where this like guy will pop up and he's kind of like another version of one of the characters.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of thought maybe that might be it. I also saw another video that was like, oh, well, this is the first time he's editing something by himself. He probably just fucked up. And I was like, I don't think so.
Yeah,
Like,
I saw that. I was like,
I
it
feel
makes
like you
sense,
watched
but,
your
like,
Netflix special a bunch.
Yeah, because it's like noticeable
Yeah.
too. Like it's like not like
Yeah.
one frame. It's there for a good enough time to like notice it. So yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe he did.
And
Sorry, what was that?
I said maybe he did mess up and he just left it in just because. It's not outside of the realm of possibility.
Honestly, I would do the same thing because it's like people will come up with some meaning for it. Like,
Yeah.
why not?
There's a word for that where people come up with meaning for nothing, like for art especially.
I know what you're talking about. I don't know the word though. Moving
yeah,
on.
I know that that's a thing, but I've never heard the word.
Yeah. The next song I specifically have in my notes: Andre, you're white and a man. Don't talk about it. It's How the World Works with Sako. So if you guys want to give your points on it, please do. I'll sit back.
Yeah. I mean, Jesus, do you want to be? I feel like I'm a white woman. Like, I don't know. I don't know if I can fully like
Like it was like
go into it either.
kind of like a painful truth sort of thing. Like, man, it really is how it works, isn't it? It's
Yeah.
Like, and then he made some stuff. It's like I don't know. Some of it just kind of hit a little too close to home, and like, shoot,
Yeah, for sure. Because like the whole, I mean, I don't think Jesus, we talked about it, and you haven't been getting the special on your TikTok like as much as we have, but like people are like constantly saying like, and it does make sense that Sako is meant to represent a person of color, and
Yeah.
like being pissed off with like the performative activism of Bo in that segment. So yeah, that's why I was like, I can't talk about it, and other people should talk about it who can be representative of those experiences. I'm not. Look at me. I'm pale as shit. I can't understand that, and I won't ever be. So yeah. Anyway.
I think it's really interesting too because that song started trending and it was a ton of like white people doing like the lip syncing of the part where he's like, you know, where Sako just begins talking, and it's like you completely missed the point of what that was about. Like you listened to a song where it was basically calling out white people for like performative activism, and then you took it and did like actual performance activism like through a video.
Yeah.
And I just thought that was really interesting how the point can be like right in front of you and he's literally calling white people out and being like, hey, if you want to help, maybe actually help instead of like trying to look like you want to help. You know, and then you do exactly what we're making fun of in that segment, you know.
It's so weird. And yeah, every time I see something like that pop up on my TikTok For You page, which is like every 5th post, it's just always rubs me the wrong way, as it should, because it's like the opposite of what was trying to be said. And it does kind of, I really enjoy the way that Bo ties in all the different segments, because from how the world works, the next, I'll look at my notes here. The next, it seems, 2 bits tackle the same idea of performative activism, because the one right after that is the strange commercial for being a social brand consultant. And that one, it's like the black and white coloration, I can't speak. It's like imitates like the false tone of seriousness that like brands tried to have, especially like at the beginning of COVID and with like the spark of Black Lives Matter again, like in the big boom after the murder of George Floyd. And then like it's also like the performative activism that he like references is so strong, because he's just like having a wheat thins choose Lyme disease as the big topic that they're talking about. So weird. It's
yeah, or there's that one part where he's like, I mean, for a second I was like, oh, he's getting serious, because he was like, you know, he said something like you have to accept that there's something wrong with the world, and then get to work making Butterfingers. And I just thought that was so funny, because it's like, you know, that's how all the advertisements are. They're like, oh, there's something wrong with our world and we have to fight racism and we have to fight sexism and this and this and this, and then buy our product. You know, it's like everything you said that was so important to be said is now just like non-existent.
Jesus, you just said something and nothing was caught. Your mic didn't pick it up.
What I was gonna say is that they like pull up this really serious topic and stuff like that, where they're talking about this issue in the world, and then at the very end they're like, so this is exactly why you should buy this extra large roll of toilet paper, because the world needs you to, okay? Like and it's just so out of pocket, and it feels like fake.
And like
what?
This was just like my opinion on, and it was definitely added to the tone. The fact that he had that tiny man bun just made him look like such a douchebag. Like not a good. And I was just, as soon as I was like, oh, this, I know who he's trying to be. He's trying to be some Silicon Valley asshole, like trust fund baby, or something like that. It's perfect. It really like shows it, like gives off the right tone so well, because it reminds me of like a Facebook ad that pisses me off so much every time I see it. It's like shows the love of friendship, and like it shows like kids playing together, teenagers hanging out, 2 like old guys having a beer like on their front porch or something, and like how important friendship is. and it doesn't tell you it's a Facebook ad until at the very end. It just slaps the F logo right there, and it says friend request accepted or some shit like that. And I was like,
what?
Oh no, they're trying to be serious.
Like those,
like just sell me your product.
Like
and
those
get on
Ford
with it.
truck ads.
Like I don't care if you care about me as a person. I know you don't. So just move on with it. Like
it. Yeah. The sudden juxtaposition reminds you of those like those car ads that they always make fun of. It's just like the Ford trucks and stuff. Where it's like some really weird scene. It's like this super serious thing, and like they're like driving through mud and stuff like that, and like there's like these woods and animals and everything.
Oh, and the monsters are chasing them and shit?
Yeah, and some truck just comes out of nowhere. Like, what? Like, just sell me the truck. I don't know why you did that. That makes no sense.
Yeah.
It's weird. I mean...
It's like completely unrelated. Like, this isn't what he would even buy it for.
Yeah. Okay. So I guess that's enough for the commercial bit. Hard cut into the next segment. White woman's Instagram.
That was funny.
What are your thoughts on it? I'm really curious to know.
I felt completely fucking called out. Like, totally called out. I mean, like, I don't think my Instagram is that way as much anymore, but I mean, I think at first my first reaction was like, don't make fun of women. Like I was like, right? Bo, like, no thank you. Yeah, but then I kind of felt like it was less making fun of women than I watched it. And it was just more a commentary from what I could tell about like performance online, and like a white woman's the perfect person to you
like,
know,
it's like a catfishing
you know, be the character for that. Yeah, well, like, I mean, I thought it was interesting because it's like all these like pretty things, you know, latte art and like pumpkins, and like I'm painting my walls all white, even though they're already white, you know, like all those like cutesy little things. And then there's like, oh, and then my mom died, and this is my picture of my mom, and I miss my mom, and like, you'd be so proud of me, mom. And I thought that was interesting because the frame or the aspect ratio,
it widens just
again
when it's
the
about
second
her.
time it happens. Yeah,
Then it goes
that's
back
true.
to when it's
about like her real. Exactly. And I just thought that was really interesting because I was like, I totally relate with that with somebody. I mean, I've been somebody who's been online for a long time. And I think that most of this special is about like our relationships, or especially this generation, our relationship with the internet and what that means for us and our mental health. And like, you know, as a white woman, I know that there's been a lot, like for me, a lot of like performance. I feel like I need to present on the internet and then present to people in real life, which is this very like, you know, feminine thing. It's very similar to the male gaze, I think. For me, it's like the same exact thing, is like wanting to appear as feminine and as beautiful and as perfect as I can. And Instagram is like the #1 social media platform where I think most women feel like they have to put that image across. But sometimes that real person kind of seeps in. And I just thought that was really interesting, the way that he did that. And I felt like it was less him making fun of white women or women in general in that part, because I was like, oh, you're kind of showing the person underneath as well, even though she's still kind of performing when she's talking about her mom, I think. That's what I think about white women's Instagram.
That's interesting. I'm really happy to hear someone's take on it. That is on TikTok. Like actually hearing it somewhat in person.
Yeah, it's like the same thing that Andre said with that other song. Like there's really no like you can't really like it's just something that you don't really understand to some extent, because like you can get it, like that makes sense. I know what he's trying to say, but at the same time, like it's not exactly the same.
At the same time, I don't have a white woman's Instagram. I have a white man's Instagram, so it's not the same.
And it's funny because neither does Bo.
Neither does Bo.
Bo in a white woman either. And I actually saw a video. Yeah. Yeah, well, I just saw a TikTok about this when I was at work just now. That was like this girl who was a big fan of Bo, and she's doing this like article about him inside, and she was like, I was getting really frustrated, and I don't really know why. And then I realized that I was upset because, um, you know, I feel like if a woman made this, it wouldn't be received the same way. Like a woman going insane, a woman experiencing depression is not as accepted as a man, and even a woman doing comedy is not as accepted. And I kind of like Bo for that. I mean, I like that he so often is depicting like really feminine characters and like you know
I noticed that. Yeah.
oh, what's the movie again? Yeah, his movie like had a young girl in it, and it was about a young girl's relationship with the internet, and now he's doing like this song about a white woman's Instagram. And like it is sad that like I don't think a woman could make this and have it be received the same way. I mean, maybe she could. I'm sure she could, but I think it's interesting that he has more than just in the song represented women online. And I think it's kind of strange that we have to like listen to a white man tell us about the way that women, like young girls, feel online. But I can't think of another like female comedian that has talked about that, you know.
Yeah. And what I've noticed
But there's my white woman opinion.
I mean, it's about the song's about white women, so your opinion is obviously the most valid and most most relevant to the song. But yeah, it's like I find it really interesting because with the Is Comedy Over song that's at the beginning, he's critiquing white men quite a lot, and then so it's kind of like I feel like the special, as all comedy should do, punches up and not down. Of course, like you only can punch up at the people that are like that can be oppressive over you, and so Bo as like a white man is at the peak of oh my god, my words are escaping me. He's at the peak of non-oppression. That's not a word.
What?
Privilege. Oh my god.
Okay, yeah, that
oh
makes
my god.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
Why did I forget the word privilege? There you go.
Yeah.
He's at the peak of privilege, so obviously he can only attack other white men. But then, I've noticed that I've noticed people talking about white women's Instagram everywhere else online, and they're saying that it's critiquing how men are kind of like putting white women into like these stereotyped categories, and how they're kind of criticizing their presence online, even though at one point it goes into the wider aspect ratio and we actually get to see them, and we actually get to see like the true nature of white women through the eyes of Bo Burnham. And then it goes back to the other like the smaller aspect ratio where it's like once again online men critiquing women for like doing all these same stereotypical things. So I don't know if this song is punching down at all. I don't want to believe it is, because I don't feel like Bo does that anymore. But I don't know.
Yeah, no, I don't think so. I think from what I could tell, he really enjoyed being a white woman and being on a white woman's Instagram. I felt like it was kind of I think he treated white women with a little bit more compassion than he did white men.
Yeah.
You know,
as you should, because that's
especially
he
with
would be punching down otherwise.
That thing about the other.
That's true.
Yeah. And I did see a lot of videos about that, about how it might be a commentary about men or white men making fun of white women. And like I feel like there's been a lot of online conversation about how like women can't really do anything without making fun of, being made fun of. And I mean, I remember when I was watching it, I was kind of like, it seems like you're having a little more fun being that like character of the white woman than you are like trying to make fun of her, you know?
So I guess moving on from that, not to sound rude, kind of just
Like,
cutting off the conversation
anyway.
on that, but because we still have a lot of bits to get through, and
Yeah, we're already
not a lot of time left.
Yeah.
No, we're doing hard
Just
stuff
talk about
here.
Exactly. So after this, there's a moment where he's listening to White Woman's Instagram in the dark, and so it's pretty cool because he's like reflecting on what he made, and then it goes directly into like this stand-up bit saying, why does everybody have to give their opinion on every single thing all the fucking time? Can't we just shut up for one moment? And I love that right after that, he has the I'm an unpaid intern song that turns into the stupid reaction bit that he does. And it's just perfect because it's like exactly what he was saying. It's like, we don't need to express our opinion on every single thing all the time. And he's critiquing those same reaction channels that do that, and it's just, it adds nothing to it at all. And it's
and it like goes to that thing where it's like a screen inside a screen inside a screen.
Yeah, and it's just like, it's exactly, it's just pure content waste that exists online of like commentary that doesn't need to exist about commentary. And when
that
I was
reminds me, man, what were you saying? Hold on, finish what you were saying first.
I was just gonna say, and like when I was thinking about that and I was writing down the notes in my notebook, I was like, wait, is this unnecessary commentary that I'm doing right now?
Yeah,
I was like, oh,
that's what we're doing right now.
Am I just feeding into the same thing right now? I was like, oh no, it's too soon in the special to have like this existential crisis about my own podcast. This isn't good.
Man, so he slandered us too.
But what were you gonna say?
That reminds me of there's a Ludwig clip of whenever he's on a stream. I can't remember exactly what he's doing, but he calls out these streamers and he's like, yeah, I just don't really think they make their own content, because eventually whenever they run out of ideas, they just go to other streamers and react to that stuff. And then he opens their stream on his stream, and they're watching his stream. So it's like kind of like a thing weird. Where he's like, yeah, he goes to this one streamer, and then they're watching him, and then they're freaking out because like, man, he just caught us like directly in the moment. I thought it was really funny.
Oh, that's great. Oh man, and then like that segment ties in, I think, with the song that's right after that, which is Jeffrey Bezos, and it's like instead of like unnecessary content creation, it's unnecessary consumption, which is like Amazon in a nutshell. Like literally. Yeah, I'd say it's like quite a significant song because it appears twice in the special. What do you guys make of that one?
Gosh, I don't know. I mean, like, that's one that I've kind of like, I don't really know what he means by it, honestly, because I mean, it is really short too. Like, the first one's really short, the second one's like a little longer, but still pretty short. But I mean, it is on theme, you're right, with like the excessive consumption. And I think with all the internet themes, it kind of makes sense because like the internet is also like excessive consumption, but of media. But I will say that I've had that first Jeffrey Bezos song stuck in my head all day. Just like, because it never ends, you know?
Yeah.
So just like while I'm working all day long.
Isn't it like the CEO entrepreneur born in... Oh wait,
Yeah.
we can't really sing it, really. I totally didn't do that.
You can't?
Netflix, don't copyright strike us. I think that
even
if you like say
Sing
it
it
like,
on Spotify.
That's true. But I think like even if like you say specific notes, or like if you sing something and put it on YouTube, like they'll... So...
How do cover songs work?
I don't know. I just listen to podcasts and they're just like, oh shoot, we have to cut that because we just sang this song like on the podcast. And yeah, I don't know. It's also kind of diving into like the corporation control shit because like YouTube is just like there.
So if I sang Never Gonna Give You Up right now, we'd get copyright strike.
I mean, yes, but no, don't do it. Anyways, after that one, that great Jeffrey Bezos song. It's like that sleepy bit where he's like lying on the floor with all of like his equipment around him, talking about like, hey, we've like screwed up our kids because we've like forced them to absorb all this content and be like obsessed with technology and everything like that. Maybe that wasn't
Those
a good
iPad
idea.
kids, those little tablet kids. You know what I'm talking
Exactly, the iPad kids.
about? Yeah.
And it's just, I love that he consistently does this throughout the special. He's always kind of really going in on a bit, and he's really, really focused on it. And then at the very end, he breaks, and he just says this offhand comment that ties into the next thing. And so at the end of this one, he's just like lying on the floor, and he's saying all this stuff about how bad technology is. And then he's just like, I'm horny. And then sexting just starts. And it's just like perfect timing. And the only thing, like, I mean, like I said, we can literally talk about this for 4 hours, like the whole special if we wanted to. But like, just to move on quickly, I mean, sexting is like what I took from it was unhealthy patterns that technology brings onto like sexual and romantic relationships.
Mm-hmm.
But like, why did he keep saying AT&T? I don't.
Maybe that's just his phone provider.
Is it? Oh, it might be his. It might be his service provider.
I don't know. Yeah.
Oh,
That's
funny.
yeah. I mean,
They're
maybe
gonna raise his rates
I
after
don't
that.
know.
I'm like, no. they get super petty.
Yeah. Oh, that's so good.
Maybe it was one of those like paid
Yeah.
promotion things. We just
Or
didn't
maybe it's
catch
like
it.
he had a bad like experience with them. Like me with Sprint.
Yeah. Let's go to the movies
what's
podcast.
with
Hate
Sprint?
Sprint.
Landers Sprint Mobile. Yeah. No.
Oh, that's ridiculous. Oh man. So,
Sprint.
anyways,
If you're
Yeah.
listening to this.
That was
sorry.
years ago. That was years ago.
Yeah. After that, it's. Sorry, I don't want to sound like I'm steamrolling or anything. It's just we got.
No, you're
there's
good,
So
you're
many. There's so many
No,
more
there's a
segments that are
lot.
coming through.
Yeah,
So-
we're already running like an hour, aren't we?
Close. So what's after this? And we're only halfway through the special right now,
Yeah.
which is
Okay,
really.
We can have an
that's
extra long
rough.
episode. That's fine. I'm good with that.
We can make it longer. So what happens next is like there's this bit where he's a fake influencer, and he like is holding the knife and like threatening the audience basically to like, hey, I hope you enjoy my content. That's one of the scariest segments to me in terms of like how close to internet reality is, because it's like, because after that he just sits there like smiling but like no life behind his eyes, and that's just like that feels like so many influencers now, and it's just scary. But that's all that I have for that. it's not much else, because then it goes into Stuck in a Room, which is one of like the softest songs in the whole special, and it's just
Really mellow. Yeah, it's nice.
it's like, especially because it's like the piano version of it, because then it gets like
Yeah.
there's the really intense one at the very end, but it's like this the really sweet one. It's like oh my god, it's just
Yeah, there was one line in that like really hit me, where he was like, he started to talk about when he was a kid, and he was like, when you're a kid and you're stuck in your room, you'll do anything to get out of it. You'll sing silly songs and like make silly jokes. And I was just like, oh wow. Yeah, like I mean, I wonder if that was, I mean, I know for me when I was like in quarantine, it was really hard not to go to those dark places, and like childhood is a easy way to just like start feeling really sad about life, you know. And I remember that line, it was just like, oh gosh, like, and yeah, and like the correlation between like a kid being stuck in their room and kind of like trying to figure a way to like get out, you know, to an adult being stuck in their room in like a different situation, you know,
in one that like has all like the social contexts of like the pandemic and everything, and it's like taking into the account that we have to technically be stuck in our room. It's not like we have the
Yeah.
options like when we were a kid to go outside. It's oh man, it's an intense song, but it's so, the music is so pretty. As the music in the whole special is just astounding, but that one is just so,
After that one, you're just like, man,
it
kind of
really
different. Yeah,
it really does hit.
It's kind
And-
of like, whoa,
Yeah,
jeez.
I think that was one of the songs for me too, where I was like, oh yeah,
Mhm.
he's not even joking in this song. Like
Mhm.
this is
Yeah, there's a
this
lot
is
of moments
not
like
a comedy. This is
That's
like
why I'm like,
yeah.
is it really a comedy or is it just like a dark movie with some little jabs and jokes in it? You know,
Yeah, it's
like
yeah.
because you know, like with the only thing I can compare it to is you know how Marvel movies are like the super action-packed movies, and then they always like there's always the characters cracking jokes and everything like that, right? Because it lightens the mood and everything goes like that. That's what the movie almost feels like. Like if
except
that's
it's just
exactly
like
what.
there's no action to fill it in. It's just more dark
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah. It's like if the dark thing is what it's supposed to be, and it's just like he's inserting these little bits of comedy just to like lighten it up. It's not like supposed to be a comedy special.
Mhm.
Is what it feels like at least.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the song that comes after this is, I'd say, one of my favorites, like visually, just because of the effort and like the high production quality. It's I'm Problematic. That song, like, very weird, because like I know, like, I've gone deep dived in like the last 3 or 4 years when I started watching Bo Burnham specials, like all of his old comedy stuff when he was like a teenager, and a lot of the jokes very uncalled for. He has a whole satirical song about, it's called The Clan Cookout, and it's about the clan, but he's like 16 when he wrote that, or something like that. So you can really tell it's like, oh, he's with this song. I don't know if he's like truly putting himself accountable to everything, because it's like the lyrics are very serious about it, but at one point when he's saying I'm sorry, he like put up the light of a cross as though he was Jesus being crucified. And I was like, is he being satirical for this whole thing? Is he not holding himself accountable for it? I can't.
Or
like,
oh,
it was very weird. What do you think, Kendra? Do you think that he was truly putting himself accountable?
Fuck, I don't know. I mean, there was that one line that he said where he was like, I'm trying to remember where this was from, but he said something like, oh, this was in the reaction video. In the reaction video, he was reacting to himself, and he said something like, sometimes if I acknowledge that I'm a douchebag, it'll make me seem like less of a douchebag, but really I'm just a douchebag, or something like that. Or he said, maybe it wasn't douchebag, it was a different word or something like that. But I feel like that happens a lot in this special, even in the one where he was like, should I be joking at a time like this?
Mm-hmm.
Where he's kind of like acknowledging that he is problematic, like in this song. Like he's like, oh, should I give away all my money? No, like, why? I can't, and it's like, you could give away all your money, you could just shut up and like let other people talk if you wanted to. Not that I want him to. I don't want him to not make this special. I really enjoyed it, but I don't know. I don't know if I'm sure he has grown up, and from what I can tell from what he's made recently, he's really trying to like do good somehow and like make art that helps people. But I wonder if the best way that he can like apologize about the way that his comedy used to be is to just like be open about it and just be like, yeah, this is what I did, and I'm still not perfect, and I'm not ever gonna say that I'm good. I'm just problematic, and like I have a problematic past, and I'm being problematic right now,
Mm-hmm.
by taking the stage, I guess. Yeah.
Of course. Yeah, the whole time I was like, okay, he's being genuine, and like, and I didn't feel like it was being satirical just because it's like I felt like that had the most like production quality to it. Like it was the cinematography was like the most intense in that segment, and I was like, he put his all into this bit. But as soon as he got in that moment when he was on the cross, I was thrown for a loop. I couldn't tell anymore. But I mean, yeah. And this is like the first time of many that we just see Bo in his like underwear, and I'm like,
Yeah.
pop off, dude. And like, I was like, shit. It's like he's not an ugly
You're
man,
really
and
comfortable.
he knows it. Yeah. After that segment, it's the turning 30 song, which I marked down in my notes as like the turning point in the special, because it's like it starts off with like the whole thing of him just celebrating his birthday alone, and the transition from that into the actual song I feel is like the whole turning point in general, because you can really see how, because it's literally halfway through. He's been working on it for 6 months at that point, and he says it, and then we see a flash of Bo at the beginning of the project, and so we can see how he's changed, and he's like not necessarily doing as well. And then once he's turned 30, he just sits there for an extra 10 seconds, and then he has just a super monotone yay. And it's, yeah, very much the spot that I feel like you get the huge tonal shift away from like the comedic songs, or the songs that can be just taken as comedy, and into the more intense shit that he does. And once again, he's in his underwear.
Yeah, I feel like that was probably the only comedic part about that whole thing. I just felt like that whole scene, I was waiting for him to make a joke, you know?
Mhm.
And I think there was 3 times that I cried when I first watched this, and this was one of them. And I think like maybe it's because I had a birthday in quarantine, but I was just like waiting for him to make a joke, and he didn't. I was like waiting for that coping mechanism, and he didn't give it to me. And I was just like, oh, like I feel this, because like when you're in a depression, you're just like so alone, and birthdays are so like sensitive. I don't know. And when you're like alone and like in quarantine on your birthday, like I don't, it sounds silly because it's like a birthday, right? But like I don't know, that was the scene that I was like, oh, like that one really hit me really hard.
It really did. And then it's interesting because it's like the song itself, the way that at least the music part of it is somewhat uplifting, like not necessarily the lyrics, but like it, and the way that he has like the lighting for that specific song with like the flashlight, which is so genius to use like the phone flashlight for that, and it just is so beautiful and like pretty to look at. But then when you put it in context with what he was just doing, celebrating his birthday, it's really like, whoa, okay, so now we can't just listen to the song like as the song, and we can't look at it with the comedy of, oh yeah, look at my stupid friends are having stupid kids, like funny, like kids are dumb and shit like that. We can't look at it anymore. But yeah, and then right after, oh my god, and then I just saw the segment that's next. What's right after that is one of the most difficult segments that was for me to watch, and it was the one where he was, so content warning for suicide right now. It's the one where he's saying like, I don't want to, oh wait, is this it? Oh yeah, he's like, I don't want to kill myself, and he was saying, nobody should, like this is stupid, like you guys should live, like if you die now, you're dead forever, like might as well live as long as you can. But then it like transitions into him 6 months later. No, actually it's the end of the special, because he has his full beard, and we see that he's watching that projected version of himself, and you can tell that while the projected version of himself is hopeful, saying he doesn't feel like that, that future version or that present version that we see he does. At least that's what the segment suggested to me, and that scared me. It really shook me, because you could see that both parts were genuine for him, but then them being overlapped, I can't even like put it into words. It's just very shocking, almost. Yeah.
Yeah, there's like two versions of himself.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of like those videos you see. A lot of YouTubers will do those videos where they decide that they want to talk about suicide, and they'll do those videos where they're like, don't do it. Like, I love you. I love all of you. Like,
Yeah.
there's so much to live for. And I've always felt like whenever I see those videos, even if those people are really genuine, whenever I see those videos, I'm just like, really think that you making a video telling me not to kill myself is gonna make me want to not kill myself. It doesn't, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, when I was watching it, I was just like, you know, it seemed like, I mean, this is probably my perception of it, but of course that's like the point of art, and we kind of touched on that. But it seemed to me like it was like one version of himself seemed to me like was contemplating suicide, and then the other one was like, I'd never do that, and you should never do it. And it just reminded me of that experience of being like, even if you want to comfort me, you really can't, because I've got my mind made up about how I feel, you know.
Yeah, like technically I don't even know who you are, so there's only but so much you can help. Like, you can only bring solace to some extent.
Yeah.
So what I think we should do, because right now we're at the section that was called intermission in the special, so I think that we should cherry pick the next ones that we do, because if we do everything, it's going to take a little bit too long to get through.
Fair enough.
So I just have the ones that I at least had more notes on, because just in general I feel like there's more to talk about. So the first one is the live stream thing that he had of the gameplay for the Inside, that when he created that game.
Yeah.
What I noticed and what I really loved with it was the music that was playing in the game was a minimalist brass version of Stuck in a Room.
Yeah.
I went back into like the special earlier, and I like listened to the music, and I was like, oh my god, that's like an 8-bit version of Stuck in a Room, and he just put it into this video game as a video game would have, and this character's stuck in a room. I was like, wow. Okay. That's all that I had for that segment. I just thought it was like a really interesting thing that I found.
Yeah, I didn't even notice that.
After that, we can jump right into Welcome to the Internet, because that's the next big one.
Oh boy.
Yeah, I feel I really liked that song.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like Bo Burnham was mainly talking about the internet in this, I think. Like, or at least that was one of the biggest themes. And like, he's talked a lot about the internet in like all of his comedy and his film. And I don't know, I really like that it was kind of like, it sounded like a villain's like theme song a little bit. I don't know if anybody else felt that way.
The evil laugh. Oh.
Yeah.
It really did feel like a villain almost grooming like a child into becoming obsessed with the internet, and then just like flipping the switch once they become of age and like are suddenly fucked up. Oh man.
Yeah, and it's so connected to that part where he was laying on the floor and he was talking about like, was it a good idea that we decided to do this to our children? And I don't know, you know, like it was totally the same like conversation. I feel like he did that a lot where he was like connecting things.
Yeah.
And
for sure.
like that's an example of that.
There's so many like tied in topics. Like, I mean, there's like that danger theme of the internet. It's in the floor thing, in Jeffrey Bezos, both Jeffrey Bezos songs basically, and in even the sexting song somewhat has some type of danger of the internet overtone, I guess.
Yeah, I can see that.
I mean.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah.
But yeah, with the Welcome to the Internet, what I found was really interesting too is the very end of it, and it's like the huge final, like big welcome back to, can I interest you in everything all of the time? Oh, I can't sing it again. Jeez.
Copyright.
I didn't sing it. But it's like
say it really monotone.
Can I interest you in everything all of the time? And it like brings in all of that stuff with all of the noise, these special effects sounds. It's just overstimulation, and that's how I felt from it. I was like, this is like way too much sound at one time. But that's the internet. That's like what you get. You get too much shit. You get everything all of the time. And
Yep.
Yeah, and I really find it interesting that he does the same thing with 3 songs. He does it in Welcome to the Internet and White Woman's Instagram, where he's just listing things again and again and again, and that's like the whole song, because it's just supposed to show how the almost absurdism of what he's talking about. But then it also goes, the same type of listing is also in That Funny Feeling. What a great segue into That Funny Feeling. He does a similar type of listing thing, but it's like not in the same way. I found That Funny Feeling to be the fucked up version of We Didn't Start the Fire by Billy Joel. That's how I pictured That Funny Feeling.
Okay.
I don't know about you guys, but like that's kind of
I can see where you're coming
that's
from.
what I felt from it, because it's like all these like random political statements or weird observational remarks that he makes that brings off that funny feeling. I don't know what that funny feeling is necessarily. Kendra, I don't know if you picked up on what that funny feeling was, but I feel like it kind of
It's
changed.
that feeling, you know that feeling, the one that's like
kind of
funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, a little bit.
Gosh, I mean, I don't know. I feel like this is another part where I might, like, I'm questioning whether I know what that is, he means, or if I'm kind of just like creating my own idea of what it meant. But I just thought it was like, I mean, he's like going into this like depressive episode. I mean, I don't want to like diagnose him, but it seems like he's going in a depressive episode. And I kind of was like, oh, that for me resonates about my own experiences with depression, that it's like you're kind of I mean, this goes along with like the internet theme, like you're kind of like disassociating, and Bo Burnham has talked a lot about disassociation. You're disassociating most of the time, like you're on your phone and like you're taking in political things, and you're taking in like social commentary and like all these different things, and then you kind of like realize that you're like disassociating from your own like depression you're possibly falling into. And maybe that is my own interpretation of it. But when I listened to the song, I was like, that's what this means for me. And now I like can't not hear it. And every time I hear this song, I'm just like, that's what it is for me.
Yeah, that makes sense, because a lot of the movies like
not to get dark.
Yeah. It's like a self-reflective sort of thing where it's open-ended enough for you to put your own meaning behind it, and it's not exactly like wrong. It's just not universal, because like it's something specifically for you, like to put your own meaning behind. Yeah. So I think you're right in that sense. I think that makes sense.
And I took the end of that song as hopeful in some way, because he repeats in different variations the lines, "Just wait, it'll be over soon, we were overdue." And I just kind of feel like, okay, that funny feeling is gonna go. We'll move on from it. Sorry, go ahead.
I I actually felt it more as like yes, optimism, but in a way that like you don't really mean it, you know.
Oh, that's kind of like
Like whenever,
Like it's gonna
yeah,
end
it's kind of like
anyway.
the same process whenever somebody, like whenever you ask somebody, it's like, hey, are you okay? And they're like, yeah, I'm fine. It's
oh,
like no,
like
you're not. It's like it's
a
not.
surface level positivity type thing.
Yeah, it's like they say it hoping that it'll make them feel a little more a little better about it, and they keep repeating it, keep trying to get this sort of feeling to it, but it just doesn't work because you don't really mean it.
Right.
That's what I think the ending is. A little bit more dark than it may have been, but that's yeah.
For
Here
sure.
you go.
So what's then left now?
Yeah, I feel like it could be either one.
Yeah. So what's left now is there's 2 songs, and we can try to tie them up really quickly. They're somewhat related. We got Get Your Fucking Hands Up and This Is How It Ends, the final 2 songs of the special. So the Get Your Fucking Hands Up, that's the one that like starts with the, it's like a extreme close up and it's just eye contact with the camera, and we get that eye contact when he says, "Are you feeling nervous?" And that struck a chord with me. I just love the way he did that, and then he superimposes all of these shots of himself singing the song. Makes me feel like I mean, I don't know how he could have done this. Kendra, you have more experience for cinematography stuff. I felt like he had it like
No idea how he did it.
Do you think that he had multiple cameras running, or do you think he filmed it multiple times at the different angles?
I think he filmed it multiple times because I think we would have seen the camera going around him.
Right.
Because the camera was like flying around. I was like, do you have like I thought he maybe had like a one of those fans maybe you like attached it to a fan or something. I was like, how is it like flying around you? Right? That's my first thought. I was like, if I could do that scene, that's how I would do it, right? But it didn't make any sense because it was still really controlled.
Mm-hmm.
But I think you must have shot it twice.
Yeah.
Probably, yeah. That I wasn't sure exactly what it was, but yeah, this song, I mean, I'm just gonna praise every single song on the music standpoint. It's just so powerful. But he has the specific section where he's talking about, he's talking to the audience and he's saying, hey, you tried to stop the oceans from rising, you tried to stop this from happening, you tried to help this out in the world. And he's like, but you don't have to stress yourself over it. He's like, heaven knows you tried, got it, good, now get inside. And that line really, like, it just hits me very deeply. He has like this huge musical build that like basically drops when he says inside, so it's like, now get inside, and it's just like this huge musical like rush that comes through, and it makes me feel like he doesn't want to be alone in feeling the way he feels, because like I guess he's seeing people doing great things for the world during quarantine and during like the pandemic and stuff, and so he's saying like, hey, got it, good, now get inside, feel the way that I'm feeling right now. That's what I was getting from it, at least, because it is truly lonely, like the way that he was feeling, and how I'd say the vast majority of us felt at one point or another, or continuously throughout the pandemic. I know I did, for sure, many times. But when I saw that, I was like, shit, he just wants us to feel the way he does, and that's kind of the gist of that song, especially like when it's the transition of him like rushing the camera and picking it up, and suddenly it's handheld, and it's like he's literally like shaking the camera, like telling us, hey, get inside, feel the way that I feel, like I don't want to be alone in this anymore. But it could also be he just feels the need of being praised online in some capacity, because he's also talked about that throughout the special. I don't know. It's difficult to talk about.
Really, Yeah, well, I really wanted to talk about that part because I think this is my favorite song
Hmm.
in it, and this is the second part that I cried. And he rushes to the camera and he picks up the camera, and I was like, I kind of thought of it almost as a fourth wall break. Like I know that there's multiple times where he was talking to the camera, but like for the first time in the whole special, I was like, oh shit, he's filming this in this room alone. And there's of course multiple parts where you can like look at the room, kind of have that realization. But like him picking up the camera and like I don't know, like circling around with it, like I I kind of that was the moment where I was like, oh, this is a man in his room alone and he's gotten to that point like we've already seen clips where he's like crying and breaking down and like that seemed to me just like a break. Like he might have planned it, he might have, I'm sure he did plan the like get the fuck up and like running up to the camera, but it
Hmm.
felt like this all of a sudden like I'm done, I'm over it, I'm like hitting my breaking point, I'm rushing the camera and like shaking around with it and like I don't know, we're like all of the shots were steady up until that, or not steady but like controlled up until that point, and then it's
Yeah,
just random, it's just like him like almost having an episode. um so I just thought it was like the most intense for me of all of them because it felt like, I don't know, it felt like the closest to like him I'd been in the whole special,
hmm,
in my own opinion. Yeah.
absolutely. It really does. It was jarring, really. Like when he rushes at the camera and grabs it, I didn't expect it the first time, and then when he did it this, when I watched it again, I forgot that he did that, and then when it happened, I was like, whoa, he's desperate to like get the point across. Like he wants us to like get it ingrained in our brain. Like, hey, I'm adamant about this. Like, I'm not gonna let, like, I'm gonna take control over the camera itself and like directly show you what I mean. Um, but yeah, so
Like he's hit a point of frustration, you know, like
yeah,
a breaking. Yeah.
because he literally does have like the moments where he breaks down right before it, and like he's where he cries on
Mhm.
camera and he screams on camera, and then it goes into the song "Get Your Fucking Hands Up," and yeah, it's intense. And when it goes over to the final song, it's it's a very weird tone. Like the beginning of it, it's like I feel like it was shot at the beginning of the whole project where he's sitting down and he's like, okay, possible ending song, take one, and then he's basically clean shaven, got a short haircut, and it just tonal shift completely. And then as that song progresses, it takes us back to where we are with "Get Your Fucking Hands Up." You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
there's
because he did kind of, there's the hair again, right?
mm-hmm,
Like his hair was like short and
Yeah,
part of that.
one little
Yeah.
part too. Other than the
exactly.
beginning.
Yeah, and with the final song, there's a few lines that I that really made me feel sad. It was, "Do I have to finish? Do returns always diminish?" And that just made me very kind of scared and worried for Bo as just a human being, because it's like he was kept on saying it, and it was shown throughout all the songs that this has become basically his way of, oh my, what's the word, like the special throughout quarantine became his kind of solace and became like his way to vent what he needed to vent and like his sense of security. But like when he was finally finishing it, he's like, do I have to? But then he asked the question, do returns always diminish? So it was like, is all that shit that he put himself through making it, is it gonna be worth anything at the end? Like, is it gonna fulfill what he wanted to actually fulfill for himself? And that's like the whole question of the whole special, basically, because then he later says at the very end, we've got you surrounded. Like, that's one of the last lyrics of the song, which takes us back to Stuck in a Room, because the last song, it brings up all of the lyrics from almost all of the serious songs in the special. Genius writing. Like, holy shit. Everything made sense in that final song with references to every other segment. But it was just so intense, because like then he like makes it self-reflexive on us and breaks the fourth wall again, and he's like, how about I sit on the couch and watch you next time, which begs the question of, does he want people to make reactions to this special? Does he want people like us to be doing a whole hour and a half long podcast talking about it, or is he talking about something else that he wants to watch us do? Like, it's weird. Sorry, I just was rambling on and on there. Somebody else please give their opinion on this song.
No, I think you're spot on. I mean, like, I've really been thinking about that too, because Bo hasn't been on the internet. I've tried to find like an interview or anything about like him talking about this, and he hasn't talked about it. And I think that there's also, like, with all the themes about the internet, there's a lot of themes about his performance and like the version of himself that is a performance for us. And like by the end of that, I don't see that performance version of himself anymore, but there's that like claustrophobia of him being a performer for us. That, I mean, you can see it in that like cold spotlight, you know, in the last scene, or not. I guess it isn't the last scene, because the last scene is him like watching himself. But I mean, there it is again. You know, him like watching himself. It's just like, it feels uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally. It's just like that. Like, it really makes me wonder about what it feels like for him now that this is like trending too. It's like, in the special, he's talking about how this fame, maybe he's talking about a lot of things, but in the special, I feel like there is a theme of him expressing how it feels to be under the spotlight. And like, I think everybody to a certain extent is like, in this day and age, we have like followings, and like we have a certain level of like performance that we perform if you're on the internet in any way. But at that level, at that fame that he has, like, I can only imagine that would give me the same reaction that it's giving him, that we can see in this. That's what I got from that last scene, was just like just like the claustrophobia of fame. Yeah. And like, the only place that he's safe is in his room. He doesn't even want to leave his room, because when he leaves his room, he tries to go back in, like after there's like the audience outside, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was really painful to see that, like, because it basically tricked us into thinking that he was gonna be okay when he leaves, but then he's just in that spotlight and the audience starts clapping, and like that scene really it hurt me to see, because I was like, oh shit, he's also a celebrity. He can't go out in the world and live a normal life like that. And like, even like, I looked it up, and it has 100% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Oh.
And
wow,
it deserves it without a doubt. It is amazing. But I don't know if that will hurt him even more, because it's like he's getting such praise for it that it's basically making him more famous.
Maybe that's why he doesn't do interviews.
Like, I mean, you would
it's probably
think
like
so.
A conscious choice.
Yeah,
because like you said, it's like at the very end, it's almost it's like being meta by itself. Like, he's doing this as a coping mechanism, like for all the fame that he gets and how he feels whenever like he's trapped in this room alone and stuff. And then like it backfires, and like it does the exact opposite for him. Instead of making him feel better, it almost makes him feel worse, because there's so much attention being put around him and all his feelings and everything else like that, in this little movie that he made out of like a passion project and stuff like that.
Yeah, and it's especially.
And it made me feel terrible about watching it. Oh,
Yeah.
sorry.
It did. It
Sorry.
did.
Sometimes it's like hard with the Discord.
Yeah, Discord has so
But
much, so
yeah,
much
it
lag.
sometimes like it made me feel. There's a little bit of it happening. But yeah, it made me feel like a little bit of like a Black Mirror kind of feeling that I would
Yeah.
have if I was watching that show. Which was like, oh well, I'm watching you, and like I would be somebody that would buy a ticket to like a Bo Burnham comedy special, and I would be one of those like voices laughing at you, and that feels really sinister and feels really wrong.
It truly does, and it's scary. And then what made it so much more scary to me, honestly, is the actual last shot. He's watching himself in that vulnerable space projected on the wall, and then he smiles at it. And then it cuts to black, and then we get the credits. But the fact that he smiled at it scared me, because I was like, was the whole thing a performance? Like, how much of this was genuine? Can we trust him because he is a performer? And because he does smile at it at the end, and like it's just a complete like different reaction than him being outside and like wanting to run back in. Very, very weird. And one thing I wanted to note is, like, I think a few days after it came out, I watched it the day that it came out, and a few days after that, he posted something on Instagram, and it was just a photo. It was like this much of his face, and he was outside. And I saw that, and I was like, that made me really happy to see. I was like, he was outside. What does that mean? I don't want to dive into it. I don't want to be his therapist. Like, I'm not here to fucking critique his mental health at all. But it just, in the context of like the special, I was like, oh, he's outside now. That
he made
me
it's
very
good.
happy. And that's the end of Inside. The only other thing there is, it says, for lore, for everything, at the very end of the credits. And that almost made me cry too, because Laura is his now partner. I think they've been together for like 4+ years or longer than that. And then he said for everything, and I was like, oh my gosh, it is, because it's like, this is like for the world. It's not for himself, it's not for the audience, it's for more importantly, it's for his partner, so that she can know how he's doing. But it's also just it's there for art, it's there just to exist. And like, oh man, it's like getting me to believe like
I didn't catch that.
Yeah, it's at the very end of the credits, right before it goes into, this is, you cannot copyright this thing, this is protected under Warner Brothers or whatever the hell it said. It's right before that, it just says for lore, for everything. And it really does, it like, oh my god, if I watch it again, I'm definitely gonna bawl my eyes out when I see that in the credits. Like, oh gosh. But
that makes me think that it's almost like the for lore and for everything is like a I don't know, like a reason that he did it, like reason that he because he said that he wasn't going to release it in the special. He was like, I'm not going to release this, I'm just going to keep making it forever. And I feel like if he did keep making it forever, he'd probably go insane even more. So I mean, like, when you said that, I was like, it almost sounds like one of those messages, like, you're the reason that I'm still here, and like, you're the reason that I'm still alive, you know?
Yeah. And it's literally like you said at the beginning of the podcast an hour and a half ago, Kendra, this is the best piece of content, of media, that I think will come out in the year 2021. I don't think much else can top it in terms of like being able to project every single emotion that can exist almost. It's just beautiful, and it has made me go into like an existential crisis of saying, oh, I'm never gonna make something as good as that, so what's the point of making stuff? But other than that, it's just, if that doesn't inspire people to make things that can like just go into their creative outlets, to vent about things, to have some place to safely and somewhat healthily express themselves, like, I don't know what else could. Like, this really does show how healing art can be, even though how much it took a toll on him. But that isn't just the special itself. I feel like it was the situation that we were living in for the last year and a half that equally took a toll. I'm not his therapist. I can't speak on it. I don't know what he was going through, but yeah. I don't know how we should end this episode.